All right, let's talk about babies' first foods. The food industry is undoubtedly poisoning our children. The sacred first foods are in fact egg yolks, organs, meat, and some fruits. These are some of the nourishing foods that I've been feeding my infant for months. Now, my parenting choices frequently cause controversy online, so here I am in longer form dissecting why we choose to feed our son in the way that we do and why he's thriving as a result. It is no surprise that our food systems have in fact been hijacked by mega corporations, from hyper-palatable and cheap processed foods and packaged goods on every street corner, all the way to Bill Gates buying up the US farmland and demonizing CO2 production while simultaneously investing in synthetic meat companies. Now, in the context of the United States, 40% of kids entering high school are overweight, 70% of Americans are on some form of medication, and 50% of adults either have diabetes or pre-diabetes, and the list just goes on and on and on. It is evident that something is not right, and nutrition and lifestyle habits are at the absolute core of it. People are waking up and questioning the narrative. Holistic health, homesteading, and the ancestral diet are all trending as people seek an alternative to mainstream health advice. But just how early should we begin questioning things? Infant nutrition will always be an incredibly polarizing topic. And I have to believe that the people who watch my content and critique my parenting decisions do have good intentions, and many do have genuine concerns for my child's welfare, as I often outspokenly question the mainstream health advice, and especially recommendations funded and fueled by mega corporations. But I sincerely believe that if you have a child, it is your responsibility to find out what diet and lifestyle works best for them. Not just feed them garbage because it's easier, and certainly not just mainstream and common foods, simply because the current science says so. Health is complicated, science evolves, and I believe that there's wisdom in ancient traditions paired with modern science. My son is 7 months old, and I've been documenting my life on social media for the past few years. And more recently, I posted a video of Owason chowing down on a giant tomahawk steak bone. The video collectively reached about 20 million views across all of the social media platforms. And what was meant to be a lighthearted video in response to recently changed dietary guidelines on infant nutrition to now include meat as a perfect first food turned into an enormous internet debate with my family at the center of it. So while we did receive a lot of support from those who understand anthropologically how our species evolved to eat, those who are well versed in Western price, and simply in other cultures outside of the West, many felt very strongly that my son was a victim of child abuse, and instead of meat, I should be feeding my infant foods like sweet potatoes, fruit, or good old-fashioned rice cereal. The idea of iron-fortified infant cereals has always felt particularly strange to me. Nevertheless, I felt like it was my duty to respond and share the foods that I've given my son, now that he's 7 months old, today actually, and why. Beginning with a yolky egg. Now, Owason was showing signs of readiness to introduce solids at around 4.5 months old, and according to Solid Starts, these signs include sitting. Baby is able to sit with minimal support. Head control, baby is able to hold their head upright and steady while seated for a duration of a meal. According to them, that's around 15 minutes. Reach and grab, so your baby is able to pick up objects while they're seated and bring them close to their mouth. And interest, so your baby is intently watching as you eat, is mouthing for food or leaning forward for it. So why did we choose an egg yolk? Well, across the world throughout the centuries and almost universally, the first solid food that we have ever introduced to babies were egg yolks. Now, according to the Western Price Foundation, the egg yolk supplies cholesterol needed for mental development as well as important sulfur-containing amino acids. Egg yolks from pasture-fed hens or hens raised on a flax meal, fish meal, or insects are also rich in the omega-3 long-chain fatty acids found in mother's milk, but which may be lacking in cow's milk. So these fatty acids are essential for the development of the brain. Now, it is important to leave the egg yolk runny, as cooking the egg with the heat alters the nutrients in the eggs and actually destroys some of the enzymes. And when they're raw, they're fully digestible and full of readily available nutrients. Now, I know many of you will say, but what about salmonella? Isn't it a huge risk for your baby? But in fact, the risk of salmonella is actually very low, especially when you're consuming eggs from high quality sources. And not only that, but it's typically found on the shell of the egg, as its common contact with the disease is actually externally from like fecal matter. And for those of you who value statistics, according to Dr. McCullough's website, only about 1 in 30,000 eggs even have a salmonella problem. Now, Owason loves egg yolk. We started with a small teaspoon only a couple of months ago, and now he can eat a whole yolk delightfully. Now, the next food that we introduced was meat. For the first time ever, the 2020 to 2025 edition of the Dietary Guidelines for Americans includes guidance for feeding infants and toddlers from birth to 24 months old. These evidence-based guidelines emphasize the vital role that foods rich in iron and zinc, including meat, play in meeting the nutrient requirements in those early years. They say that healthy, full-term infants are born with sufficient stores of iron for approximately the first 6 months of life, and then after that, iron requirements drastically increase at around 6 to 7 months old. So therefore, starting at approximately 6 months old, all infants, particularly breastfed infants, need to eat iron-rich complementary foods such as meat to provide adequate sources of bioavailable iron. Bioavailable being the key word. Now, this information is consistent with the American Dietary Guidelines, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Academy of Medicine, and also the World Health Organization, who we all know and trust. So we gave Owason both meat on the bone and steak cut up into very large strips. So contrary to popular and very vocal online beliefs, it's actually recommended to give smaller babies larger pieces to chew on rather than small cut up bits. And that's because it's less of a choking hazard to present food in this way. And this is according to Solid Starts, which is a really, really great resource on baby-led weaning. It has been so interesting watching Owason chow down meat, because I'll give him like a strawberry and then I'll also present meat to him, and he will every time go for the meat and just gnaw on it. It's really great for their jaws, it's really great for his teeth. We also gave out fruits like banana, papaya, and avocado. That's because they are nutrient dense, easily digestible, and also abundant in the land in which that we are currently, which is Costa Rica, for those of you who don't know. Owason is also a fan of butter and yogurt, which is very easily mashed into any concoction of the above foods. My son is very curious, he's very active, he's crawling, climbing, and smiling. He's potty trained at 6 months old and already has 8 teeth. Now, I know parents like to use milestones to validate their parenting decisions, but I can't help but wonder how much of his nature is left to chance, genetics, or related to a nutrient-dense pregnancy, postpartum, and infancy periods. There are sacred first foods, and I honor these parenting practices cross-culturally, into which I benefit from today. I don't believe that our child's nutrition is particularly controversial, and I've definitely been surprised by the attention and reactions that we've seen online. I believe that you only have a few years to set the nutritional foundation for your children and build habits that will last a lifetime. So I am very intentional with the way that we eat, and I'm very intentional with the way that I raise my son, and I'm super proud to be sharing this journey online with you guys. Let me know in the comments, if you have children, what first foods did you introduce to them? And if you don't have children, why don't you ask your parents what first foods were introduced to you? If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will be sharing more, especially in this new year. So thank you.